Stock Talk. It's March 28th, 2025. It's Friday. Today, Dow Jones Industry falls 1.69%. NASDAQ falls 2.7%. S&P 500 falls 1.97%. And the Russell 2000 falls 2.05%. Sector-wise, communication service falls 3.81%. Consumer discretionary falls 3.27%. Information technology falls 2.43%. The utility sectors is the only sectors that increased 0.76%. And the real estate and the healthcare, these two sectors, falls relatively less. If you look at the whole week, then the Dow Jones Industry falls 0.96%. NASDAQ falls 2.59%. S&P 500 falls 1.53%. And the Russell 2000 falls 1.64%. Today's stock market sell is mainly caused by the fear of the inflation. This morning, there is a report on the personal consumption expenditure index, which included the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge of core PCE. The reading showed that the price increased more than expected last month, rising 0.4% month over month and 2.8% year over year. This is the inflation rate start January 2024 all the way to February 2025. You can see that on February 2025, the rate stands at 2.8%. But with this morning's reading, what people are concerned about is that the inflation rate will start to going up, which is really triggered this morning's market sell. As I mentioned in my previous video before, I really don't have the concern for the bear market or recession until I see the inflation sticks up, the consumer confidence really going down, and the unemployment really goes up. So let's take a look. So now, if you look at the consumer confidence index for the past 2 months, it is going down. And this is a recent development. I think it dropped from 100.1 to 92.9. This is the lowest level in more than 4 years. The expectation index, which is based on the consumer short-term outlook for income, business, and the labor market conditions, tickled down to 65.2 from 72.9 and remained below the threshold of 80, which typically signals a recession is ahead. Another data to validate this is by looking at the US consumer sentiment in March. It's also plunged to its lowest level since November 2022. The target readings from the University of Michigan came in at 57, down from 64.7 reading in the previous months. If we look at the unemployment rate for February, it is stick up. So if that continues, then there will definitely be a concern. Now let's take a look at some individual stocks. Let's first look at Tesla. Tesla on Wednesday, it had a big drop, over 5%. on that day, the volume, if you look at it, it's kind of not increased a lot. It's kind of flat. But and yesterday it's still above the 5-day MA, but today actually it dropped through 5-day MA. So I would say for the short-term investors, we need to take some cautions, maybe get out some of it. But if you look at the weekly chart, on the weekly chart, we are in between the 30-day moving average and the 60-day moving average. So for the midterm investors, I would say we are on the borderline, right? Because normally for the midterm investors, if it's dropped below the 60-day moving average, we should consider sell. And for the long-term investors, if we look at the monthly chart, we still haven't hit the 120 days moving average yet, not to mention the year moving average. So for the long-term investors, it's still a keep. Now let's look at the NVIDIA, NVDA. NVIDIA stock is quite a different story than Tesla. On Wednesday, it also have more than 5% drop. However, the volume is increased. And especially we need to pay attention to that. Recently, China was considering limiting the H20, the chip usage. This is the first time that the Chinese government have taken negative actions against NVIDIA. And also, U.S. have tightened its policy on semiconductor trade with China. So with the both sides, the government is kind of make it the business situation more hard for NVIDIA. We really need to be cautious here. If you look at the RSI, there's a dead cross. And I would say for the short-term investors, it should probably be more a sell than Tesla for NVIDIA investors. Now, if we look at the weekly chart, it starts to penetrate. This is the 60-day moving average. So for the medium-term investors, it's probably also a sell. And for the long-term investors, depends on how low you get into it. You still have some times to go before you make a decision. However, I think based on the things I mentioned before, you need to seriously consider whether you should still continue to hold or reduce the amount of holdings on NVIDIA. Also on daily chart, it's very obvious. You see the pattern of lower high and the lower low. So those patterns normally suggest the stock will continue to go lower. Last, let's look at the AppLovin stock. Its stock ticker is APP. AppLovin is a stock that helps the app developer and consumer to make connections. So on this is Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. On Tuesday, I was making the prediction that it will go into this gap here. And it is normally said that the big gap have a small resistance. However, on Wednesday, it dropped. It formed a what's called the top fractal, which I didn't pay immediate attention. It's my fault. And then on Thursday, suddenly come out a news that there's a short organization. They claim that the AppLovin have claimed that their sales was increased over or about 100%, but actually it's earning 20-30%. So after that news come out, it dropped significantly, more than 20%. And today, I think AppLovin come out and defense on that, and they hired a law firm to start a independent investigation against the short selling firms. So today is the stock coming up. So for this kind of drama, I think I really forgot that this is the small stocks, and sometimes you just cannot, put too much money into it. Actually, I didn't put too much money into it. I put some small money into it, but I get this stuck into this. So overall, I think the chance of getting into a recession or even a bear market is increasing. So when I get a chance on a rebound, I will probably consider to sell some of my index ETF. For Tesla stocks, for the short-term positions, I will get out some. For the long-term and medium-term positions, I will still keep. For Novitium stocks, I have already sold all my positions. I know that for the technology-wise, it's probably still being a very predominant positions, and eventually it will come back, but I don't know how long. For AppLovin stocks, it's gambling now. I love its business perspective, it's a growth perspective, but as a small investors, the situation is really out of my control. So I wouldn't add more money to this position. That's all for today. If you like my video, please give me a thumb up, share with other people, and also subscribe. Thank you for watching, and you have a good weekend.